morning. This is, I believe, a very, very knowledgeable and experienced group. And there's a diversity of skills. My intent in spending the next few minutes today with all of us is more to be able to help us spend a little more time together in reflection. And if we can, towards the end of it, take away some takeaways for ourselves, I would think we have achieved part of the objective. I'd like all of us to close our eyes. And I'm going to ask you to envision or visualize 3 scenarios. Scenario 1, you're in a restaurant. A CEO is being given a farewell. Look at what are the visuals going on in your mind. Scenario 2, your friends invited you to meet another friend and spouse, friend's spouse, who've recently been married and are visiting your friend. You've been invited over to spend the evening. Scenario 3, you walk into your uncle's office. A worker is eating breakfast in the office pantry. You may open your eyes. I'd like you to know that the CEO that we saw in the restaurant is a Black lady. Your friend who invited you over for dinner has invited his friend who is a lady married to another lady. The worker eating breakfast in the pantry was the housekeeping help for your uncle's office. Were the visuals in our mind similar or different?
Different by a mile.
They would be different because that's not the stereotypical image of a married couple, right? I mean, while we accept that, but I mean, that's not what people would generally think of.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Quite the opposite, actually. Yeah.
Great. That's a good start. So I'm looking forward to all of us together as a group spending some minutes discovering more about ourselves. And in the cumulative experience sitting in this room with multi-skills, I look forward to us being able to interact as and when there is an opportunity to express your perspective. This is an audience where I look forward to partnering in this journey with all of us. So what are we talking about today? I thought we'd talk about something which is so inherent: biases. So let me read out the definition to what a bias is, as the dictionary terms it. A prejudice in favor of or against one thing, a person, or a group compared with another, usually in a way considered to be unfair. That is what we term a bias. Question to all of us. Do we think a stereotype and a bias are the same thing?
Would you like us to send
Yes,
the
please.
answers through chat, or how would you like us to respond to
Yes,
this?
a chat is good, but we could also respond through speaking.
Stereotypes can result in biases.
Okay. Anything else?
See, I guess bias is a stronger dose than merely envisioning a stereotype. So that's a
Okay.
strong feeling you have, a strong positioning you have towards a side that makes it a bias. There's no leeway given for the other side. It's 100
Okay.
0.
Okay.
Stereotype can be 50-50, 70-30, etc. That's my take. Bias is strong. You
Mhm.
can't visualize you can't tolerate other aspects to come at par with an even keel. That's what I would think.
Sure, sure. So I think that's a pretty good response, Sanjeev. Thank you for sharing that. Let me clarify for us, and I'm also hoping that along the way we'll be able to clarify a few of these things which may be sitting a little differently in our mind. A bias is more overarching. A stereotype would be more like a subset of a bias, because these prejudices which end up becoming stereotypes is also because of how we associate to a specific group of people or to specific situations. Very quickly, can we think about some stereotypes that we all see around us and personally also end up believing in?
Stereotypes, there are many. One is women can't drive very well.
Okay,
That's
great.
your bias. That's your prejudice.
Yeah, so so his prejudice has created this in his mind that it's a stereotype. Any others?
Lady of the house involved in the kitchen and other aspects, so just taking care of the home.
Okay,
Mothers
so you're
only are
saying
supposed to cook.
Mothers,
mothers should be taking care of homes. Women
not should be,
taking
but
care
we've
of
just
homes.
grown up seeing it. But we believe they have a right to explore the world like men do. Yeah.
Right. And therefore, we may end up finding it uncomfortable when men are expected to be in a kitchen or support the house. Would that be correct?
If you want an honest answer, yes. It doesn't
sure.
sound good, but yes.
What others? Let's quickly look at a couple others.
If you study at an IIM, IIT or a Ivy League, you will be successful.
Okay. And we all know that that may not essentially be true.
Absolutely.
Men are not supposed to work in the kitchen.
Yeah.
The base,
Neera, with your
biggest
permission, may I just take 30 seconds and hijack this meeting to your introduction? Friends, I committed a blunder. It was a faux pas. I forgot to mention Dr. Neera Gupta is also from IIM Lucknow. She's done a HR from there. I'm sorry, it escaped my written note.
That's perfectly okay, Sanjeev. That doesn't matter.
Aman's bias brought me back to my faux pas.
Boys don't cry.
Boys don't cry. Okay.
Super.
Girls are weak. Any others?
girls can't lift.
Girls can't lift. Okay.
Adding to Addy, men are supposed to be chivalrous and allow the passage of way to the ladies.
Okay. All right. Fair. Great. So do you think there's a difference in rational decision making and biases?
100%. Yeah.
And what do we think is the difference?
So rational decision making comes from an objective point of view. You look at the world the way it is with data, with metrics, with numbers, with however objectively you can look at. Whereas biases come from things that cook up in our mind, and our mind starts acting against us.
Sure. So a little bit of clarification here also is that while rational decision making will depend on gathering information and data to arrive at a decision, whatever that information may be, we may also have something called a confirmation bias, where we start gathering data to support the viewpoint we have. And I'm sure while I'm saying this, many of us can visualize multiple scenarios where we end up doing this, don't we?
Very true.
Yes, absolutely. That happens all the time.
Right. So we may end up having a confirmation bias where we do gather data, but it is a bias again. Okay, so how do you think this whole, another question before we move forward. What do we think is cognitive bias? Is it the same thing as unconscious bias, or are they different things?
Different. Cognitive bias is when you deliberately go along a road, collecting information that suits your pre-existing notion. Unconscious bias can be subconsciously you are led that way, but there could be resistance. In cognitive, there is no resistance. You broke no denial. You go your way. I'm sure Saloni and Astha would have been the right people to answer. Sorry, guys. I mean, Saloni, you please speak something.
I think uncognitive bias
sorry, cognitive bias is influenced by your unconscious bias. Because whatever your mind is already pre-programmed you, that becomes what you're looking out for, right? So it's all correlated that way.
So interestingly, unconscious bias and cognitive bias are the same thing. And I want to take us a little bit into the process of what causes a bias. Where do you think a bias started? Decisions in age-old times, how were they made? Decisions were made on flight or fight, weren't they? And we have this little part in our brain called the amygdala. So I'm just taking you a little bit into the process side of it in terms of how the bias gets created. This amygdala, which is the most ancient part of the brain, signals to the hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus fires the hypothalamus pituitary axis, which is also called the HPA, which is our central stress response system. It is the place where the brain and the endocrine system are interacting. And the adrenaline gland releases cortisol. Stress is created, and that determines whether we will whether we will fight or whether we will fly. That's how it started. When our minds have to handle today's world, what do you think is happening in the current environment? Let me talk a little bit about that. Are we all living in a time of change? We are. The fact that we are doing this meeting on Zoom versus how you would have done it a year ago is very different, isn't it? The world has changed. We are interacting differently. We found a different way to now conduct these meetings. So time has changed, situations have changed. Did we have initial resistance to this? Do we have any bias that came up initially to say, oh my God, how am I going to do this meeting on Zoom now?
Yeah.
Did it take us a while to get over it?
It took a while to get used to it.
Right. Right. What did we do to get used to it is something we'll come to later. Let me look at a couple of other things. There are some of us in the book club who love to read. And I know Sanjeev will be looking at me and smiling now. We all are voracious readers. Did we have to make sudden shifts when this pandemic came in terms of how we were going to read?
I think what changed with the book club, I'm not a member of the book club. I think Aman can speak about it. I think from an offline meeting, they went to an online setup. That's what changed.
Yes, we never thought that we could actually meet online and have those kind of discussions. We thought it will be very fake and, we'll be distracted, but nothing like that happened. In fact, in Reciprocity and the book club, the meetings have become even more productive.
Wonderful.
We've lost the issue of traveling and time where we can just be there whenever we want.
Absolutely. So in a lot of ways, it actually worked out to be better, didn't it? Did we also struggle with the format of reading?
Not in the book club.
Okay, we did, right? Some of us had to kind of make a shift to start reading from a hard copy book because books were not being delivered through Amazon to actually start reading on Kindle. And many of us have now so easily moved to Kindle despite the initial hiccup. Are we finding it more useful?
Much more convenient. Because
Wonderful.
we can read wherever and whenever we want, even for a few minutes.
Okay. Yes. So we have had a bias, but we've been able to look at things coming out as benefits. So I want to ask all of us, are all biases good, or are all biases bad, or are biases only bad?
I would say it's both. Some biases can be good, some biases can be bad.
I think biases
No clear-cut answer.
There is a purpose for biases, like as you rightly pointed out, the amygdala, which is the lizard brain as they call it, right? I mean, in prehistoric times, the society or a tribe can believe not to go out in the dark because wild animals will hunt you down, right? So certain biases are there because of a cause. And in today's world and age, sometimes biases also come in the way.
Okay.
I think some biases just help you being intuitive. I think some are important. Some help you out in observing other people. So it's like a mixed bag of what do I put? How should I put it? It's good or bad. Depends on the situation.
Sure. Any examples coming to the mind?
For example, when I'm meeting a client for the first time, and when he introduces him to me, and the things that he tells me about him helps you form an opinion. And if he, for example, he says something, if I form a bias about him, it helps me understand him better, him or her better in that situation. So yeah, I think biases sometimes help you a lot.
Okay. What could be some biases that are useful for us?
Bias developed. I'm sorry, I missed out. Actually, I lost my internet connection suddenly. There was a light failure.
Okay.
Biases developed based on a chance to have rational thinking first, and on facts and figures, on data. That has some bearing, some feet to stand on. That bias has something to depend on, not merely what we feel should be right. I think
Can you give us some examples?
Yes, I personally believe that facts and figures matter a lot.
Okay.
Whatever we attempt. And that's a great way to keep us in check against running away with a cognitive bias. So the data, facts and figures, etc. If you want an example, I've seen that in exports. We feel, okay, with this order, with this kind of style, we'll keep repeating itself. It doesn't see the light of day for the next 2 years. Many biases happen where you think of repeat orders essentially in garment exports where they don't come. So you feel that this is a great idea because you've done your research on it, but all your research need not necessarily be correct. You spend time on it, it doesn't guarantee you'll be on the right path. So that's one aspect I have felt.
Sure. So there are some, and without like deliberating too much, there can be good biases. There can be biases which may also not be good for us. Some good biases could be a bias towards saying, okay, healthful eating will lead to good health. So that is a bias, and it also becomes a fact, and we know it's an informed decision, to your point, Sanjeev. You could also think of something that is going to be a danger because you have a bias to say, if I'm out at night in a lonely lane, it's not good for me. I could be unsafe. So that's a bias which could be something that protects you. Biases otherwise can end up becoming systematic thinking errors, which can also cloud our judgment, don't they? So let's take up a piece of paper. Is it handy for all of us? And just use 2 to 3 minutes reflecting on what are your individual top biases and what are some of your individual stereotypes. And please let me know what kind of time I have.
You have another 10 minutes for your talk and then 10 minutes for Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
A quick clarity, doctor. So, when you talk to people often and talk to entrepreneurs in general, you also start realizing that somebody who's trying to do a lot of BS versus somebody who's actually factual and who's straightforward and knows his stuff. So is that bias or what is that? Where would you categorize that?
You tend to feel that somebody?
Like, when you talk to a lot of people over time, you just start realizing, right? is somebody's trying to bullshit you or somebody's being genuine and factual.
Correct.
So where would you categorize that as? Is that bias again playing in, or is it this experience? And then you say we call it experience.
So I want you to do a little bit of reflection on it. We will be coming to that a little later.
Okay.
When we talk about some of the things that do come in the way and what we could do. I'd like us to really use this time to reflect a little deeply. It may be a good idea to figure out which of these biases may be becoming disablers for us.
Top biases need to be personal in nature, right? Because you can't have a general bias, otherwise it'll be stereotype bias if it's applicable to all.
Right.
You want us to discuss this, or would you like us to post it? How do we go? Sorry, we
Yes,
got time.
I'd like us to share, if we are okay to share,
Yeah.
what did we discover
Yeah.
as we reflected? And if you'd like to share your experience of what you realized.
I could go with the personal bias, the top bias, if you would allow me to speak.
Sure, please do.
Two things have come with experience here. One is this feeling I used to have a bias. How can a man from a lower economic and social strata have anything to give to me, have anything to contribute? What does he know? This bias somehow had been inculcated in our systems, but I have been repeatedly exposed to this bias, which has forced me to check myself all the time. You can have your domestic servant coming up with an idea, with a thought that that you can't think of. So that has been a bias which humbles me repeatedly and has forced me to always allow every person a fair chance to say something. That's come with experience after the University of Hard Knocks. And the second one has been somewhat related. Don't rush to a conclusion about a person's caliber after meeting him or her for the first time, especially if he or she is an introvert by nature. People do take time to open up. I feel I am an extrovert, but that doesn't mean everybody is made the same way. And you have to give the person time. You may be hasty in your judgment, which often becomes wrong. These are two personal biases I faced. And I keep checking, I keep trying to check myself, but often one still fails here. This is what happens.
So may I ask you a question?
Yes.
Where do you think it's coming from?
I don't want to use the word upbringing, but I guess the socially accepted norm as we grew up.
Okay.
Look, my life has been in a boarding school right through. From my KG to my class 11th, I was at boarding. So it's not from the home as such per se. Maybe the environment in the school where we were the privileged lot. We felt we were the privileged lot, or we were told we are the privileged lot. So that kind of may have Shiv can easily share my mindset because he's had the same experience. I think that may have contributed. In my house, it hasn't been like this. Like my mother would never do what I'm saying. She would never take this that you come from any superior this thing, nothing like that. So we were all like, in fact, I keep checking myself and thinking what my mother would do, honestly, and that's how I come back to earth immediately. Sure. I'm sharing very openly because this is something. It's a family. Unless we are frank, we'll not get anywhere here.
I appreciate your honesty and forthrightness, Sanjeev. Would others also like to share, please?
Yeah. Okay, so please go ahead. Saloni, please go ahead.
Okay.
So
one of the biases we have is that to be charitable, you have to be wealthy and you have to have a lot of money. But my experience from life has been that I've seen, especially in Delhi, is the more money you have, the more conjuice you are, and it's the general people who are more charitable and do good for mankind than people who have too much wealth. They behave in the opposite manner.
Okay. So your bias got changed, right? Okay. Saloni, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. So I don't know whether it's a bias, but I have this thing about that the head of the family, right, which is usually a male, and he's the guy who's responsible for providing for the family.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a very strong, I mean, I've had this thought and this notion for all my life. And when it didn't happen, right, when it didn't happen the way I thought it should be, I kind of had to deal with it, that okay, if that's not happening, then I need to take the lead, and I need to make it happen for myself. So
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Really appreciate your sharing that. And would you kind of concur that it was possibly coming from a place of kind of conditioning, because that's what you've seen as you've grown up, and
Yes.
somewhere you had to deal with the change in information to say that's not reality, and so you need to do something different, and it created stress for you, which you had to deal with.
It's totally.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Would anyone else like to share?
I don't. Okay, Vikas, go ahead.
Just continuing from what Saroni said, just to co-connect the points, I've had a feeling for the longest time, which I'm trying to let it go of, that, as a family elder or as somebody who has to sort of manage the entire family setup, which could be a spouse and kids, there is this whole thing of giving a lot of protection. It's not about being overpowering. And that in itself, becomes a huge encumbrance for them to express. So I'm learning as to how to let it go off. That's on the personal side, right? From the corporate side of it, because of experiences, I've always felt that the larger organizations typically are not all that nimble. There's so much of jargons of process and system, which kind of hampers the learning. It is a second sort of a bias, which still stays with me. I haven't really been able to sort of let it go off. Whereas I find the mid-sized organizations to be more nimble. That's been my personal experience, right? The third bias or stereotype, just one more just to add, is that, there is this feeling that maybe less education would lead to less throughput. That is also sort of another bias called stereotype, which is typically been there. And that typically leads me to often say at forums, while being very humble and while being very humble, so to say, that the common sense is not so common and there's no substitute to common sense, because then that's where the learning starts because of a mentoring profile. I end up saying that quite often, while being very humble.
Yeah. And you would have also realized that that may not always be the truth, because you've seen enough and more cases which are successful otherwise as well.
So we're evolving, and I'm happy to evolve.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. So I'll quickly just summarize this and move forward, because I'm also mindful of the time that we have available. So what we've seen is that our conditioning, or the way we've grown up, or the environment we've been growing up in, or what we've seen around us, or even our cultural influences or the religious beliefs we may have seen in our family that get practiced, are some things which may be contributing to the kind of biases we end up growing with. And Saloni expressed, and Sanjeev expressed, and Vikas expressed some beautiful examples which substantiate that. We also, of course, realize that there are some inherent biases we continue to have because of the way we've been programmed from prehistoric times. And both of these obviously have proved to us that sometimes our myths, if I may use that as a word, get busted, because we realize that's not how reality actually unfolds. And therefore, it also creates contradictions. For example, in Saloni's case, I would think there was a substantial contradiction that came up, because there was a belief system which created a bias. And then there was a contradiction, because on one hand, we may want to achieve something and we think it's okay to do that. But the moment we realize we may end up being the main person who needs to run the show, then we have to don a different hat and make that shift and transform ourselves. Really appreciate all of us sharing that. So then clearly what it's telling us is that biases are there, biases exist, they are always inherently there, or we end up inculcating them along the way. And some of them may work in our favor. We've seen a few examples. We could have more. But largely, they can lead to judgment of error, and we are forced to realize that things actually unfold differently. Now, this becomes extremely relevant in today's time, doesn't it? Because we are possibly at that time in the history of mankind, if I may use it. And Sanjeev had talked about us reading this very interesting book called 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, where the whole conversation in that book is around the very quick shift happening. And we are all experiencing it. We are all privy to it. That time and situations around us are changing so fast that we don't even have the time to grapple with what's going on, and we need to suddenly move on to something else. So, very quickly, and this is where I want us to spend a few minutes, because this, I think, is important to the entire conversation we've had so far. What do you think are the barriers to the change that we need to make?
One thing that comes to mind is this book by Marshall Goldsmith, which talks about what got you here won't get you there. And one of the things that he says that comes in the way is I'm here because of all my fallacies, in a way, and that we create a narrative to start accepting our fallacies, right? So that is definitely, I believe, that one thing that comes in the way.
And where do you think it's coming from?
I think it's kind of a confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias, or a rigid belief system to say what I think is okay and the way I believe things to be is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else?
I think my own mindset.
My own mindset.
My entire thought process of how I, take things.
Sure.
That is a deterrent for sure.
And why does that become a deterrent?
Because you don't know whatever see, it's all a game in your head. You see something, you perceive it, but that depends on years and years of learning and years of reading. So it can't change in one day. So
yes,
it takes
but
time
can
for
it change?
to overcome. Definitely.
Does it need to change?
Yes, because I from personal experience, when I was in college, I used to believe that I just cannot talk to anyone who's got a low IQ. I cannot associate with such a person. When I started working and I started working with all kinds of people, then I understood that everyone has an important role. Everyone has a role in what you do, and whether high IQ or low IQ doesn't matter. If you're working, you're working. Simple.
Got it. Thank you so much for sharing.
Sometimes,
what about the ego? Sorry, please go ahead.
I was just going to come to that, Neera. That I think the most
inability to let go.
Sorry, Saloni. Yeah, absolutely. Let go. And what was coming to my mind was that I know at times we know what we are saying or what we are doing or our biases are wrong, but our attitude, and we say that I'm like this only. I know I'm wrong, but I'm like this only. So I think that's operating out of ego, because you're wrong, but you just don't want to correct yourself because you say, oh, this is how I am, accept me just the way I am.
We get so stuck to the identity we've created for ourselves that the ego keeps popping in. Absolutely. And Vikas just made another very beautiful point, which goes back to corroborate on the rigid belief systems and traditions and our own mindsets that we talked about, right? So we are seeing that the barriers are all something that we've created for ourselves. And I think it was very beautifully put just now in that example of, I will not talk to people who have low IQ. Where is all of that coming from? It's coming from our own internal mind space, isn't it? So Malika, thanks for sharing that. That was really nice. Very quickly then, what can be enablers? What do you think is going to help us on this journey in an ever-changing world, which is changing at breakneck speed today?
I think awareness foremost. Awareness is where it all starts,
Wonderful. Yes.
I would like to add, sorry, I think somebody's saying, okay. My take would be recalling instances in all humility where you went wrong. It will change then, because these hardcore biases or your feelings will disappear, not disappear, will be reduced the moment you recall instances where you were wrong.
So you're examining yourself.
Yes. In honesty and with humility, you will realize that you were wrong. And that helps you check your hardcore bias on it.
Wonderful. And Vikas just summarized it very beautifully. Vikas, could you read it out? Because I'm also connected on a phone, so it's a little more tricky to navigate.
Yeah, so I never wanted to sort of speak about the other panelists. So to me, I think knowledge, openness, and acceptance is very important. The biggest, I think, challenge is acceptance. We do tend to think that what we think is always right, but the fact of the matter is we make mistakes.
Mm.
For perfection, I think we need to give space to others around us. It's very important.
Right, and
That itself, I think, could be a game changer to me.
beautiful, yes. And where does that come from?
Yeah, this is what Vikas is saying. Acceptance of not, but acceptance of the reality is very important. Like,
right.
This is like, and when it came to Zoom calls, like you started off with, I think we were very hard to accept for us that this is our new reality, right? But the moment we accepted this is our reality, things changed, and we got so accustomed to it now that when somebody says, let's do a meeting now, the first thing is, can I do it on a Zoom call and get done with it? I don't want to travel and I want to save time now.
Yes.
So I think acceptance of the reality is very important.
So the way I like to summarize is, if we do not practice all of this, there's no way we can ever practice risk management. I mean, to me.
True. Very well put.
Wonderful. Yes. So examining the self, keeping an open mind, which is open to receiving new information, receiving new points of view, receiving new ideas, and also welcoming different views, isn't it? And gaining knowledge. What about knowledge? Because the more we are in a place of knowing, and I think Sanjeev touched upon it, going back, reflecting on what happened, that is what allows us awareness and knowledge. And also being authentic. I think it had come up a little while ago. How important is authenticity in all of this?
It's at the core. It has to be there.
That is what will help create all this. So we've seen the enablers, we've seen the barriers. How do you think your biases can become teachers for you?
First, you to accept that you have bias, right? So,
I'm sorry?
First, you to accept the fact that you have so many biases in your mind.
Yes, which is awareness.
Yes, so if you don't accept those biases, then you can't learn from them.
Wonderful.
I think by having consistent dialogue, especially looking at collaborating with the people with like mindset, I would say, which is not so easy, but if you identify the right mindset, that itself, I think, creates a great enabler for you to obviously express yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So creating a space of awareness for us, which is able to help us create the right mindset. Looking at biases as an opportunity for wisdom. What is working? What is not working? What can I do differently? Is another way it becomes a teacher for us. Our realizations, have we reflected? Are we able to learn from it? Can we go ahead and therefore change things that need to change? And our experience is a mirror to us because it helps you say, okay, this is the way I want to be. And coming back to authenticity, am I being this person? Is this the way I am? Or is there a gap because of my biases? Am I saying something else, but in essence, living something else? And therefore, your experience becomes your mirror. How do you think your biases could also challenge you?
Every failure, in every failure, bias is a challenge because it's a bias that's driven you to that failure to begin with.
Right. So and Sankalp, I'm going to move to the Q&A right away. I just have another 1 minute and we'll move to the Q&A, right? Sure, so I just want us to quickly, therefore, summarize all of this and look at finally what we've achieved. So what have we achieved? We've learned that biases are inherent or biases are inculcated. Is everyone with me there?
Yes.
Right. So what do we need to do to change it? So we've all agreed that there is a need to change. There are some biases which may be good for us, which we can continue to use with awareness, with discretion to say, these are biases I may have, but maybe they're good for me, they work for me. They keep me more protected or they keep me more healthy, etc., etc. And since we don't have so much time, we can't deliberate on it in too much detail. But what is it that's going to help me overcome? So I have 4 points that I thought I would bring to you to be able to look at a step-by-step approach to what can help us overcome. The first point I'd make here is say, receive information. Be willing to receive ideas. Be open to accepting people and differences. Be open to receiving diversity. Be open to receiving challenging perspectives and have the humility to accept that we are not always right. Be open to receiving the realization that I may be operating from a paradigm of the ego and need to transcend that. The second point I would say is no. Spend time in realization and reflection. Ensure that we are able to seek knowledge or information which can help us correct our biases, open our hearts out. For example, just to substantiate this, one of the points we may realize today is to say, okay, the world has changed. And it's okay for me to know now that the first activity we started with, it was perfectly okay to have two women walk in as spouses. So the world has changed. That's knowing. Knowing that without change, I cannot succeed. Knowing that my own perspectives are constantly in need of being challenged. And the third point that I'd like to make here is examine. Go back and think about it. Say, where is it coming from? What is causing it? I'm a believer that the more we can examine, the more we learn and we embrace. If we don't examine, then it's almost something like water on a slippery floor, which just flows over. Examining allows us to be in that space of deep reflection and realizing what is it that we are allowing us to become and what is it that we can be the possibility to become, the potential to become. And the fourth point I want to make is embrace. Embrace change, embrace others, and even before that, embrace yourself. Embrace the unexpected. Be aware of what it means and make the change to live a more powerful life. So these are the 4 points I want to leave you with. Receive, know, examine, and embrace. I want us to close our eyes again. And let's visualize the same scenarios. You're in a restaurant. A CEO is being given a farewell. Your friend invites you to meet a friend and the spouse. They've been recently married and are visiting your friend. You walk into your uncle's office and a worker is eating breakfast in the office pantry. Let's open our eyes. Were the visuals any different?
Yes, the visuals were
Yes.
different slightly.
Excellent.
We
So
allowed
friends,
your inputs to be imbibed into our thinking about that gay couple as well as about the black woman. So we allowed our horizon to become bigger subconsciously.
because you opened yourself to receiving.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Also,
So with that,
I think, Neeraji, that these are instances, and there are instances in our own lives where these things have happened, and we probably just don't take cognizance of them because of our biases.
absolutely. And therefore, thank you so much. I want to leave you with a thought. We have an environment, we have a changing world, we have our own belief systems, we have the way we tend to create biases in our own minds. Some we will change because of awareness and knowledge. And a lot of times, to create that awareness in ourselves, we may need help. And the help we may need is to make that time or learn a process or a technique that works for us. Whether it means being in a space where we learn some mind management techniques, or whether we learn meditation, or we learn something else that works for us. So please feel free to figure out what should that be for you, so that it helps become an enabler for you to be able to overcome your biases. I'm also reachable. And Kanchan, would you like to have that slide shared? And then I'm happy to take some based on the time we have.